Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today we are, and I just messed that whole intro up, but welcome back. Today we are doing SOC role in blue team, and this is the second one. We're going to hop right into it. I told you guys I'm going to try and record as many of these as I can. And basically, one thing I noticed right away on this path is that you see it says you've learned about SOC Level 1 analyst in this. So it actually is following a progression as of right now, which before it wasn't. It was just kind of scattered randomness. And so it is cool that they are saying, hey, here's what you should have completed to get to this level. Here's what you should know, etc. And they're kind of guiding you in the right direction. So before we get started, guys, please hit that sub button. It helps out tremendously. Check out the Patreon. I have a weekly newsletter for a free one and a paid version. And I also have extra content in there as well as many other benefits like one-on-ones, etc. Make sure you hit that sub button, guys. It's the only way the channel grows, and I really appreciate it. I'm trying to really pay attention and see what you guys like and help you guys. So let me know in the comments below what you guys want to see. But I had a ton of comments saying they wanted to see me finish this path. So, okay, I don't know why it turned dark view there, but it didn't before. Anyway, so security hierarchy, where does it sit, right? Where does a SOC sit? So there is some controversy on this, and we're going to talk about that. So cybersecurity priorities are different for every company. Exactly. For law firms, the goal is the privacy of the legal documents. For factories, availability of production. For hospitals, safety. That's why every company has a unique security approach and security team structure. This is true. So let's take a high level look. So you have your CEO, right? CEO runs the company, chief executive officer. Then you have your CISO, chief information security officer. Now this is where it gets confusing is you see there's CTO, CIO, CISO, and they can all fall somewhere in there, right? And that's why I say it's confusing because they can fall somewhere in there. And a lot of times they do fall in different ways. So you might see like a CIO or a CTO and a CISO reports to them or, whatever. You can see all this format all different ways. This is just a very small example. What I mean by that is there's also usually more than 2 or 3, right? There's usually CFOs and all kinds of other things. So it doesn't just mean that there's going to be like 2 or 3 C-level executives unless it's a small company. Then you have your security managers, right? Usually you have your team lead and your manager. This person, the team lead, should be very experienced. The manager doesn't necessarily have to be an experienced incident responder. It helps for sure, but they need to understand how to best get the best results out of their people, right? A leader isn't the most technical or whatever. They are the best at getting everything out of the people that their constituents, right? The people that report to them. And then you have your SOC analyst, your SOC engineer, your GRC, your pen tester. And sometimes GRC is its own thing too, depending on a big company. These might be separate roles. So understand they don't all fall under the SOC all the time, but this is kind of a loose way they do it, right? And again, they made it a point that, hey, things fall under each company differently. Really hone that in, really pay attention to that because this is not how you're going to see it. Probably at whatever company you go to, it's probably not going to be this cookie cutter. So you got your red team. This is your cybersecurity offensive experts, right? Your pen testers, ethical hackers. Your GRC team, specialists managing policies and ensuring compliance. Blue team, defense like SOC analysts, engineers, and incident responders. So which senior role typically makes key cyber decisions? That would probably be, it's only got 4 letters, so I'm going to say CISO, right? Yep. And you notice that it says makes key cybersecurity decisions. Usually these are strategic decisions. These are large overhead decisions that are going to be like, for instance, hey, we're going to go and implement MFA for the company this year, right? They're not going to go in and be like, what product are we going to use? How do we implement it? What level, what policies do we need to turn on? All that configurations, none of that. They're saying this needs MFA, right? And then they're looking strategically, okay, now we'll rely on my experts. How long is that going to take? When can we roll it out? What products do we need? What budgeting do we need? All that stuff, right? What's the common name for roles like SOC analysts and engineers? Says, I guess, blue team. There we go. Okay, and the sound is new. I don't remember them doing sounds before, but okay, so let's meet our blue team. So blue team is about defensive security, meaning it constantly monitors for attacks and tries to respond to them quickly. Depending on a company's size, blue team can include a lot of different roles and subdepartments, usually counting 3 to 50 members total. This is true. There's times where you'll find that large companies, both may have large amount of security professionals, all in different variations of this. But what you will find too is almost every company probably outsources a piece of this. An example might be you might have everything, but then you hire a pen tester to come in and do your pen test, or you might have a GRC folk come in and do some sort of audit, or you might have an incident response person on retainer and you bring them in or whatever. And they showed that at the beginning, right? This person only gets called in on demand when we need them, right? So that's where you're most likely going to start your cybersecurity journey, right? SOC is the central hub. Most people start in the SOC. The reason is, for one, it's almost impossible to be a good pen tester if you've never worked in a SOC. I'm not saying it's impossible. There's some out there. But the reason I say that is you don't know unless you really, really focus, which you can, and people do. You don't know what that SOC is even defending, like what they look like. What does it look like to get an alert, to see it? How do they correlate alerts? You don't know how any of that works unless you really dive into you doing it on your own, right? And so this helps tremendously. And I also believe pen testing helps SOC analysts tremendously if they know how to do it. So level 1 analysts, junior members who triage alerts and pass complex cases to level 2. So one of the big things I want to point out here, and one of the things that people don't take into consideration, is everybody thinks this junior word in level 1 word means entry level to a college kid or a high school kid or whatever. It's not entry level. It shouldn't be. You can go get a job as a SOC analyst. You're probably going to be miserable because you're probably going to be overworked. You're probably going to have way too many tasks and you're probably going to be underpaid. Just going to be reality. The reason is because that person doesn't want to pay for a real SOC analyst. They want to pay some random person to just sit there and be a placeholder. The reality is you need to know IT. If you don't, you're going to really struggle as a SOC analyst. If you don't understand how do systems work together, right? Imagine getting in an environment with 5,000 assets, right? Which isn't even very many. And you get 5,000 assets and you get an alert on one and that says brute force SSH. Does that mean anything to you besides someone tried to log in? No. What if it's a critical piece of infrastructure? You have no idea. What if you can't take it offline? You have no idea, right? These are things you have to learn, and you learn this through understanding IT, right? Would you know the difference if an AD got hacked? And I can tell you, we do live tabletops in the Discord. And we did one for Cyber Awareness Month where everybody got a role in the Discord as a SOC analyst, a CISO, etc. And one of the ways they failed, and failed is a bad word because they actually learned, everybody learned, and that was what was awesome about it. One of the things that they did was they actually quarantined the domain controllers. What does that mean? Anyone that works in IT knows if you quarantine a domain controller, you just shut off the entire environment, right? You just stopped everything from communicating, basically, right? There's no authentication available, etc. So no DNS, no authentication, all that stuff's gone. And so that's an example of they just did that, and they were doing proper procedure, right? Quarantine a machine, but you need to have that nuance of IT. So level 2 analysts, you've got your experienced members who investigate more advanced attacks. So this is usually like, hey, we're going to escalate to level 2. Engineers, they configure the tools, right? They bring them in, they configure them, they set them up. An example of this might be, hey, we've got our, a good example is like a TLS cert, right? Hey, we use our EDR, but it's got a web interface. We need a new TLS cert added onto it. The security engineer is going to be the one that probably goes in the back end and puts that TLS cert. It's, yes, an analyst could do it, but that's just an example of like their job is to maintain the tools, right? Then you got your manager. This is the person that manages the whole SOC team, right? This is pretty self-explanatory. Okay. And then you have your cyber incident response team, your CERT team. A lot of people call them different things. You can see CERT, CERT, etc. Usually called on demand. A lot of times these are the same people as well. What I mean by the same people is you might have like an actual incident response team that you do call on demand. There we go. But you also might have like a threat intel person that's always working and doing threat intel. But then when an incident comes, you bring these people together and you say, okay, stop everything you're doing. We have an incident. This is now what you're working on. And so that on demand can be that they are an employee and then you bring them on, or you bring them in to do the incident response. If SOC expertise is not enough or the incident gets out of control, you urgently call the firefighters, in this case, CERT, right? And many people have people like this on retainer where they have the resources. So a lot of times what happens is companies have a SOC and everything's great. And then an incident occurs and it starts to spread. And when it starts to spread, that's okay. Those SOC analysts maybe be able to, or probably could have handled it until it started getting out of control, where now they don't have enough time to catch the attackers. And so they call in these incident response teams and say that they probably already have on retainer. And they say, we need you now. And they come in and they immediately start just hitting everything. And it's not that these incident responders are better than your SOC analysts. What it is these people see it every day, all day, and know how to respond accordingly. And that's just it. They're not going to question, right? And they operate in parameters that you set, right? Like if you say don't quarantine domain controller, they're not going to do it, right? And so there is some nuance to it. Now, specialized defensive roles, you got your DevSecOps. This is development security operations. So this is like, hey, when we're developing stuff, we have SecOps for it. Penetration tester, that's your ethical hacker, right? Your GRC auditor, they're going to come in and make sure you're doing things up to regulation. AppSec engineer, threat analyst, and AI researcher. So you can see, the AppSec engineer, their job is supposed to make sure that everything's following the proper life cycle. Gather data about emerging threat groups. That's your threat analyst. And again, these don't necessarily, like I said, here you have your threat intel expert and here you have your threat analyst. They can be the same person. It shows it here as separate people, but it can be the same person. People wear multiple hats at companies all the time. Does blue team focus on defense or offense? That's defense. Which department handles active or urgent cyber threats? And this can be, depends on how they want it laid out. Okay, they probably would have taken all three, but okay. So now advancing your SOC career. So this is where people start, they start at like level 1, right? And they start moving their way up and they start realizing like, oh, maybe I really like threat intelligence. Or maybe I really like, something else. Like maybe I really like engineering, or maybe I really like architecture, or maybe whatever, right? And so when that starts to happen, you start finding your niche and you start moving your way to that path, right? So starting as SOC level 1, blah, 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 gain core SOC skills and practice them. Be proactive. Try yourself in CTFs. So one of the biggest things, this is one of the, okay, I like they threw themselves a little bone there to try and advertise, but this is actually true. And one of the number one things I see in SOC analysts go wrong. And that is all these SOC analysts want to move up, right? Nobody wants to, it's kind of like help desk for security. Nobody wants to stay there. But then you go to promote somebody or promote, you say, hey, we have an opening for a senior position or whatever. And you go and ask people, what have they been doing since they've been working here, right? You've worked here for 5 years. What have you been doing? Well, I stopped 3 attacks in that 5 years. So you're doing your job, right? That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to pick the person that is proactive, that's competing in CTFs, that's keeping up on cyber news, getting new certifications, all that stuff. That person, they're doing that because they enjoy it, right? Not because they just want to keep progressing. And I'll tell you, I'm one of those people. I do these videos, for instance. I do videos because I enjoy it. I don't get anything out of this really. Like this doesn't help my career, right? This is all entry level stuff. I'm past the entry level point of my career, but I do it because I enjoy it. I like to help people, right? So I'm looking for those people. I'm looking for the people that say, hey, if I'm not ready to be promoted, that's fine. I'll be there, right? Don't let the promotion wait on you. Meaning, don't ever have a promotion opportunity and there's a requirement or something that you're waiting on and it's waiting for you to complete it. Always go above and beyond, and I promise you, you will do great. That's why when I say wait, make sure you're ready to get into a SOC role. That's why I say that, because what happens is you see these people get into a SOC role. It's more stressful than they thought. They used to do CTFs and try hack me and all that stuff, and then they stopped, and they just stopped because they don't want to do cyber anymore, right, on their own time, which is fine. But understand, now you're at a point where you want to get promoted, but you're not doing anything else. You're just doing your job bare minimum, and so other people are passing you. And so that's why I tell people it's okay to start in IT and then figure out what you want. Prepare for an interview. Learn the difference between an internal SOC and MSSP and apply for a job. If you haven't prepared for an interview, please, for the love of God, and I'm not saying this for just to get you guys to pay for the Patreon, go into my Patreon and just do it for the 1 month that you want to do the interview, right? Or you're preparing for an interview, and I will do a full mock interview with you with questions on whatever job you want with real, I do this for a living. I hire people all the time. I'm telling you, it helps tremendously to get those reps in. Start applying for jobs that you don't even care about. Apply for a McDonald's job and then interview as if it's the best job in the world and just get that skill set. Practice, right? Practice for those jobs for those interviews, because when you get in an interview situation, you do not want to be surprised or taken back. Okay, so internal SOC versus MSSP. Not every organization has the expertise to operate its own SOC, right? So they use managed security providers. So this is a company that delivers a SOC to you, right? They come in, they integrate with all your infrastructure as far as from a technical perspective, and then guess what? Alerts go to them, they respond to them, they handle the stuff, and then they escalate accordingly. They just don't work directly for you, right? You're basically paying someone to do what you can't do. So it says, while we recommend applying for any open SOC position as your first job, it's also important to understand the differences. It's really important to understand the differences because people get stuck in MSSPs and then hate their life. Internal SOCs are usually more enjoyable. This is why. So you work at a SOC team of the bank and protect the bank's systems. You work for a global MSSP protecting 60 customers, right? So you see the difference? You work for one customer and you protect their assets, or you work for 60 customers and all you do all day long is respond to incidents. Some people will say, and they're not wrong, that MSSPs, you might get more experience. This is true, except when you have an internal SOC and that internal SOC also lets you do other duties, right? An example is, I'm an internal SOC, you're interested in pen testing, but you're not really sure. I can have you shadow the pen tester because we don't have incidents like we do at 60 customers, right? You have time. I can give you some time. I can let you focus on what you need. I can train you better, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you won't be as good of an incident responder probably as this MSSP. Maybe you will. It depends on the training, but there's something to be said for getting that experience in both sides. Usually have calm shifts without too much time pressure. So internal SOC, once again, less pressure. Your shift starts from a queue of urgent alerts. So you hop in, this is MSSP, you sit down, and there's already urgent alerts waiting for you, critical alerts of breaches happening, and you have to start handling them. It's not that easy. This one, security tools, you work with just a few tools, but need to know them very well. And this one, you have to work with 60 diverse security tools and platforms. Now, this isn't always the case. A lot of times MSSPs will say, we offer these tools. That's about it. That way, they have experts on them, right? So it's not always the case that an MSSP is going to use 60 different tools. It's just not. Incident practice. You saw and learned from 2 major cybersecurity attacks last year. Every week you deal with attacks and breaches and can learn from it. So it sounds like the way they're playing that or portraying this is the MSSPs are better bang for your buck as far as experience, but it's not always the case. The reason I say that is one thing that you're going to see in an MSSP is you're going to respond to level 1 alerts. You're going to say, this looks real, blah, blah, escalate. And you're going to give it off to the tier 2 guy, and then he's going to handle it. And then, you have your SOC team lead who's going to sign off on the final thing, and et cetera. You're not really gaining much there. Understand that. Sometimes if you have an internal SOC, what'll happen is you see that all the way through, including with the person, and you have the time to break it down and really understand what occurred. And so sometimes you'll get much more depth of knowledge here, and here you'll get a lot of experience with level 1 alerts. So it's kind of a checks and balances, if you will. It's both are kind of necessary, but both have their downfalls as well. How would you call a cybersecurity company providing SOC services? All right. Welcome back. I actually accidentally ended the video. I don't know what I clicked, but how would you call a cybersecurity company providing SOC services is MSSP. And then which role naturally continues your SOC level 1? That's SOC level 2 analyst, right? So now we're going to do our final challenge. We go in here and it says, okay, your SIM, basically you have all these different roles. You got to assign them to the task and then figure out who's going to do what, right? So the SIM created an alert about a firewall brute force. Who should triage that? That should be a level 1 analyst. If I can find one, there we go. The HR manager, Anna, clicked a phishing malware. Who should make a deep analysis? That could be SOC level 2, right? It's understand that they clicked malware, but we don't have an active breach that we see, so it's probably okay right now. The office in France was somehow hit with ransomware and needs immediate response. Well, that's going to be your CERT lead. You need incident response immediately. Our server is storing the credit cards require PCI data. That's going to be your GRC all day long. Who can check the new version of TryHackMe for vulnerabilities? Well, your penetration tester can probably do a pen test on it, right? And then the SIM is unavailable. Let me get out of the way here. The SIM is unavailable due to a storage limit. Who can investigate the issue? That's going to be your engineer, right? He needs to add storage. And then lastly, let you guys read it. The Fin7 threat group is actively targeting our company. Who can analyze it? That'd be your threat researcher. And there you go. You can see pretty quick, pretty simple. Nothing really to that except for those are the kind of your day-to-day tasks. Understand that there's going to be nuances in there, but that's kind of what you're looking at. And then you can see here the next rooms in the path we're going to do. I don't know if those are in the path or not, but it says humans as an attack vector and systems as an attack vector. So let's keep it moving and go down to the next lab. Okay, they added some new audio.